Um, I'll introduce myself again. My name is Toby Dennett. I'm Strategic Development Manager in the Arts Council. I am a white male in my 50s, balding, wearing a grey jumper and black trousers. So I guess what I really want to say is just how important we think Philip's research is. Obviously, it's been raised here that one of the challenges for artists with disabilities is that if they want to speak up about their experiences or their challenges, they have to deal with speaking about a whole set of, I suppose, personal circumstances. And some people are okay with that, but there's a lot of people who don't really want to go on record and put themselves in the spotlight in that way. And I think for that fact that there's a lot of, there's relatively little documented, recorded evidence around how artists with disabilities in Ireland are impacted by the regulatory and policy environment in which they operate. So I think that's the real importance of this research. It's critical. It's giving artists a voice without, I suppose, exposing them. People participating are doing so confidentially and anonymously. And I think for us, partnering with third level institutes, we are, I suppose, assured that there's a real rigor and legitimacy to the research. And that will become available at the end for reference and evidence into the future. And we really need that. So really, we are here to talk about the Green Paper on disability reform. But I think it's important for us to just outline where we are coming from in relation to that. We are the National Development Agency for the Arts. We're committed to ensuring that everyone has the opportunity to participate in the arts and contribute to culture. We've a stated vision around the arts, that people can practice the arts, that can be done widely in our communities, and for artists, all artists, to have productive and rewarding careers. Our strategy commits us to supporting artists to make work, but we do recognize, as Maureen said earlier, that there are barriers that make it harder for some people to participate in the arts. And we have been concerned for some time that artists with disabilities face particular challenges. And one of those challenges is the implication of awards, grants to artists, awards or grants to artists who are in receipt of disability benefits. And we've advocated on these concerns to ministers and officials in our parent department and in the Department of Social Welfare. I think it's also important just to remember as well that obviously we are a grant-giving body, so it's those grants we give out directly, but it's also about payments in the wider sector as well. So I was just talking this morning with colleagues from Project who are saying they face this challenge on a daily basis as well in terms of contracts they engage in with artists. So I think these are really important. And I guess also just to remind us all, we have our quite ambitious EDI policy and action plan that commits us to addressing these specific challenges. We have an artist pay policy, and in fact, Philip's research, I think as I mentioned, arose out of that policy. And that's all in the context also that we've initiated and supported policy, programs, and funding for the development of the arts and disability as an area of arts practice for over 20 years. And of course, not all artists with disabilities identify as such. So our concerns about the impact of grant giving extends beyond just those funding programs that are specifically targeted at an arts and disability sector. So this brings us to the Green Paper. The Green Paper on Disability Reform issued by the Department of Social Welfare. So a Green Paper is a proposal that it's put out for consultation and feedback. So this is put out by the Department of Social Welfare. It has a background in the, I suppose, the 2021 Indicon cost of disability study, which identified the additional costs that those with disabilities face. And the government committed to using that research to inform the direction of future policy. And the government's roadmap for social inclusion and pathways to work strategies included commitments to developing a proposal for the restructuring of long-term disability payments. And that's what this Green Paper is. So what is in this Green Paper? quite a lot. There's a significant document available which you can look at. But essentially, it proposes to do away with the existing welfare schemes for people with disabilities, to replace them with a single scheme, and then offer, I suppose, 3 tiers of supports based on an assessment of a person's ability to work. So the Green Paper describes it as, I suppose, a proposal to target resources and remove anomalies in the multiple existing schemes. So why is it important to respond to this? Well, we've advocated for change previously in these areas, but it's not easy to influence policy in this space. And what the Green Paper proposes is not really a response to our specific concerns in the arts, but a Green Paper does provide an opportunity to have your say. So even if your say is scrap the Green Paper, that's an important opportunity because the door is open for that conversation to happen. So it's really important that everybody has their say on this and makes a contribution. So what we think of the Green Paper, well, we've obviously reviewed the proposal, we've attended consultations run by the Department of Social Protection, and we've heard at those sessions what others have to say as well, particularly people with disabilities. And we've heard concerns expressed about how people will be assessed as having or not having capacity to work, and how they might be allocated within the tiered system, and what the implications of that might be. And those, I suppose, are really big questions. They're really fundamental questions. However, we're wondering if those are the questions for us. We are wondering if really that's within the remit for us to respond generally to that core proposition proposed in the Green Paper. We're not a representative body for the disability sector. We don't have that mandate. There are others who do have that mandate, and we imagine that they will be responding in that way. We feel that we need to focus on what the implications are for artists and for us, a public body committed to equality, diversity, inclusion in the arts. And we do have concerns that the new approach proposed may not deliver the changes we've already advocated for and may make the situation worse. So we envisage a proposal which we focused around 2 core themes, and those are the rights of people with disabilities to participate in arts and culture, and the need for disability supports to reflect how artists work. I think I'm on a slide behind. Okay, so on the rights issue, look, I mean, Philip went through some of this, but there is the United Nations Declaration on Human Rights, which is a declaration of principles that says everyone has the right to freely participate in the cultural life of the community. There's also the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which has more of a legal status, which requires us to enable persons with disabilities to have the opportunity to develop and utilize their creative, artistic, intellectual potential, and not only for their own benefit, but also for the enrichment of society. And then under Irish law, we have a public sector duty. We have a statutory duty to eliminate discrimination, promote equality, protect human rights of customers, service users, and everyone affected by our policies and plans. And this is a legal obligation. It's called the Public Sector Equality and Human Rights Duty. So we've already raised with ministers that our concerns that practices within social protection jeopardize our ability to offer meaningful supports to disabled artists on the same grounds as offered to non-disabled artists. And this undermines our ability to comply with that public sector and human rights duty. So if an Arts Council grant is simply replacing lost or reduced disability benefits, then the recipient of that grant is not benefiting from the additionality of the grant in the way that a non-disabled artist would. And in the context, obviously, of the added cost of disability, that's a real concern. So the fundamental human right to participate and contribute to culture is diminished. And for us, that would be a core part of the submission to the Green Paper. The other bit then about how artists work. I mean, it has been well documented nationally and internationally that artists and arts workers tend to have low and irregular, unpredictable incomes, high levels of self-employment, project-based careers, precarious working conditions. And in some ways, this is just in the nature of working in the arts. And the Department of Social Protection and Welfare have in some ways already acknowledged this precariousness. The social welfare scheme for professional artists on job seekers allowance allocates a status to artists within the welfare system. Now, what that scheme delivers and how it works and how successful it is, I'm not going to get into here. But there is an important principle here, which is that its very existence as a scheme is an acknowledgement by welfare that the work in the arts is characterized by certain challenges that require specific social welfare response or merit certain exceptions to standard practices. And it's that principle which I think, will be core to our response. And it will, I suppose, back up a number of other more specific requests we might make in our submissions. So we are thinking about, obviously, that we hear that artists with disabilities regularly report that the full value of an award that they're offered might be means tested, when in reality, only a small amount of that may be income, their project type awards in particular. We might envisage advocating that certain Arts Council derived grants be exempted from consideration in any means testing, or might be allocated at a higher threshold in consideration of any disregard. You know, we can think there might be precedents for this in examples like Catherine's Law, or perhaps the way that even the Arts Council bursary awards and canoeist payments are specifically named by revenue as qualifying for tax exemption. So also, we know that artists earn their income from a mixture of different types of employments. I think it's really important that kind of sporadic payments and those lump sum installments, that we need to be sure that artists can find a way in and out of any new system, and that it's clear on what those routes are, and they're not impacted by that regularity and change. We might advocate for an assessment on that capacity of work or the legitimacy of a choice to pursue a career in the arts. I think there are concerns of how those things would be arrived at, and I suppose we would be advocating that there needs to be real consideration of that, and that that's potentially a very detrimental effect on allowing artists with disabilities to participate as others might do. So there are multiple issues that relate to how artists work, which we envisage we might frame in our response. And while I think a number of those do relate to issues of freelancing in the arts, I think it'd be fair to say that although those kind of freelancing type characteristics you know, are particularly prevalent in the arts, they're not exclusive. And I think the nature of work and employment is such that it is kind of growing in quite a number of other sectors. So I think there may be scope to kind of frame that, not just in terms of the arts, but a general need within the workforce. And for people with disabilities, I think those are key things. And one final thing on this, I mean, I think it'd be important to say that the basic income should probably be part of our submission as well. Now, I don't want to jump the gun on what on Philip's research, and of course, the Department of Arts has its own 3-year significant research project evaluating the operation of the scheme, and it'd be really important that that rolls out. But there's perhaps, I think, an alternative solution in some of the ways in which this could be managed. So I think that would certainly need to be part in some way of our submission. That would be important. Now, finally, I think we just want to say it's really important that we do want to hear what you think. We would encourage you also to submit your own responses. You don't have to fill out any particular form. You can make any type of submission. We'll be putting our key points up online, and the deadline for this has changed from from December to 15th of March. So I would encourage you to participate in that.